autumn of 1939, on this very road, a Nazi officer named Cajetan Muhlmann was traveling down here on a secret mission. Hitler, Goering, Hans Frank, he worked for them all, stealing some of the world's greatest art treasures, like some kind of mafia bagman. Now, more than 7 decades later, we're still on the hunt for a priceless painting worth over $100 million.
At the end of World War II, the Allies made a series of shocking discoveries. Hidden in trains, bunkers, and deep underground, they found mountains of stolen treasure.
That must have been like going into Aladdin's cave.
Hitler and the Nazis had looted an entire continent and committed the greatest theft in history. Now, a team of investigators is opening up cold case files of Nazi plunder still missing today.
We're talking about things that are worth tens of millions of dollars.
Robert Edsel is an expert in Nazi-looted treasure.
Hundreds of thousands of objects are still missing. Well, we have a lot of digging to do.
Joining him is Second World War historian James Holland.
None of this was really his. He'd just taken it.
And investigative journalist Connor Woodman.
And this is a genuine treasure hunt. We dig a hole in the ground and we find those cases.
Their mission, uncover new clues.
Oh gosh, this is it.
Explore Nazi hideouts.
Whoever built this brick wall really didn't want anyone to get through to the other side.
Find out how the treasure was stolen and where it might be now.
What a piece of history.
At the headquarters of the Monuments Men Foundation, an organization that has found and returned many Nazi-looted treasures to their rightful owners, founder Robert Edsel and art and restitution expert Dorothee Schneider reopen a cold case from the outbreak of the Second World War.
So this is what we have on Poland, Robert.
At the heart of the investigation is the Nazis' systematic pillaging of Poland.
Es lebe Deutschland!
I think like 90% of their cultural treasures stolen. I mean, I don't think any country in Europe was looted more extensively than Poland.
On September 1st, 1939, German troops invaded Poland. Hitler's plans were brutal. Seize Poland's territory. Enslave its people. Destroy its culture, and plunder its treasures. Within days of the country's surrender, the Nazis stole one of Poland's most valuable works of art. Portrait of a Young Man by Italian Renaissance master Raphael. It is still missing today.
And it's the focus of our investigation to find the most important painting missing since World War II.
To solve this 70-year-old case, historian James Holland heads to Krakow in southern Poland. This city was the home of the Raphael when the Germans invaded Poland.
I've never been to Krakow before, but as a historian, I associate this place with Nazi oppression, with the ghetto, of course, and the Holocaust. Yet this place was also the cultural center of Poland, and as such was a prime target for the Nazis for the systematic pillage of art. And right at the very top of the list was the Czartoryski collection.
At the start of World War II, the Czartoryski Museum boasted one of Poland's most important private collections of art.
So, Agatha, this is an amazing place. When was it created?
It was formed at the end of 18th century by Princess Isabella Czartoryska.
The crown jewels of the Czartoryski Museum were known as the Big Three: a Rembrandt, a Leonardo da Vinci, and a Raphael. Today, these rare masterpieces are valued at approximately $500 million.
Now, Agatha, I know that of the Big Three, the one that's still here is the Rembrandt.
Yes, it is.
Is it possible to see that?
Yes, please follow me.
Thank you. Oh gosh, it's just here.
Yes.
Landscape with a Good Samaritan by the Dutch master Rembrandt was stolen by the Nazis during the war.
It's stunning, isn't it?
That's beautiful. Lucky that he survived in this state of preservation.
The Rembrandt and the Leonardo were recovered in 1945, but not the Raphael.
And here you've got the print of the portrait of the young man.
Yes, probably the famous missing young man in the world.
So in 1939, the actual painting would have been in this frame.
Yes, the pictures were taken from their frames.
Yes.
Packed carefully and taken to their property in the countryside.
With war on the horizon, the Czartoryski family evacuated the paintings to a secret location in rural Poland. This would be the beginning of an extraordinary wartime journey for the Raphael.
You're Polish, and this belongs in Poland. What would it mean to you to have this back?
Enormous joy, pride. I think in a symbolic way, recompensation for the victims of the war in the area of culture.
To discover where the painting might be today, the team must retrace the Raphael's wartime journey. James sets off to the Polish countryside. In Dallas, Robert and Dorothée gather information on the Nazi chosen to spearhead the theft.
There they are, the big three of the Czartoryski collection. Hitler wants them, Hermann Goering wants them, and they make the decision to send in this SS officer, Kajetan Mollmann.
The Nazis dispatched SS officer and art historian Kajetan Mollmann to Poland. His mission? Plunder the nation and ship the finest works of art back to Hitler and his greedy deputy, Hermann Goering.
Yeah, Kajetan Mollmann, I have a file on him, Robert. He's a really interesting character. There's a great quote here. It's from a Dutch report from after the war. Kajetan Mollmann is obstinate. He has no conscience and does not care about art. He's a liar and a vile person.
October 1939, days after Poland fell. Kajetan Mollmann learned the big three were hidden in the Czartoryski family's country estate.
I'm about 2 hours east of Krakow at the moment, driving through a pretty bleak and snowy Polish landscape. I'm looking for a place called Pelkinie, which was the country estate of the Czartoryski family.
James has come to meet Witold Czartoryski to find out what happened to the paintings at Pelkinie. Witold is a descendant of Princess Isabella and the current owner of the Pelkinie Palace.
Witold, this is a wonderful place. So what's the story of this house?
Well, it was the house of my great-grandfather.
At the start of the war, it was here that the Raphael, the Leonardo and the Rembrandt were hidden.
My grandfather had them taken here for safekeeping.
Do you have any idea where they hid them?
Yeah, I can show you the room.
Well, I'd love to see it.
Witold brings James to the oldest part of the palace. Here, beneath a 17th century guard tower, is a secret room. Walled off from the outside, the room could only be accessed through a hidden doorway.
Originally, there was no door here. It was a wall. This room was like the treasury of the house, with only one secret door in the corner.
Oh, look.
Which, from the other side, was hidden behind furniture.
Really? So if you're in the next door room, you can't see this door?
In the next door room, unless you knew, you wouldn't actually realize that there was a room here.
Only the family knew where the paintings were hidden, or so they thought. When the German occupation began, refugees and enemy soldiers overran the palace.
In one wing, there was a detachment of German soldiers.
Incredible.
Because this was a strategic place to oversee the area.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
Somehow, the secret room was discovered, and someone informed the Germans.
Who?
I don't know.
But who would have known?
Well, somebody must have tipped them off.
The Nazis stole the Raphael, the Leonardo, and the Rembrandt. And this is the scene of the crime.
The Raphael. Do you think it's still out there?
I'm sure it is.
Muhlmann took the paintings to Hermann Goering in Berlin. But it wasn't just the number 2 Nazi who wanted the masterpieces.
Hans Frank, the Governor General in Krakow, wants the paintings back there and orders that Muhlmann bring them back down to Krakow. It doesn't end there because Hermann Goering wants them back in Berlin. Frank gets livid and orders them brought back to Krakow. Back and forth like little boys fighting over marbles, all spending time away from the war effort, all focused on these 3 pictures. And it really goes to show, I mean, the power and magnetic appeal of these paintings.
For more than 2 years, top Nazis bickered over the masterpieces. In 1943, Hitler finally sent the paintings back to Poland. James returns to Krakow to meet the son of a top Nazi who held on to the paintings for the rest of the war.
Hans Frank's youngest son, Nicholas.
My father could be very funny. He was really entertaining, but he was also a big coward. He was a mass murderer.
Historian James Holland is in Krakow to look for clues in the case of the most valuable painting missing since World War II. He's come to find out what happened to the masterpiece, Portrait of a Young Man by Raphael, after it returned to Poland.
This is the mighty Wawel Castle, which until the end of the 16th century was home to the kings of Poland. Then in October 1939, a new king arrived, not a Pole, but a Nazi, Hans Frank.
Hitler appointed his friend and lawyer, Hans Frank, Governor General of Poland. Frank instituted a reign of terror across the occupied territory, earning him the moniker, the Butcher of Poland. During his rule, 4 million Polish citizens were murdered in ghettos and concentration camps. Hans Frank added insult to injury to the Polish people when he expropriated their president's official residence to make it his own.
He certainly treated it like his own personal fiefdom. The whole place was bedecked with swastikas draped down, the stormtroopers all standing to attention, the parades in here. He brought in lots of fine things. He also brought in the big 3, the Rembrandt, the Leonardo, and the Raphael. And the reason I come here is to speak to a rather special person, someone who was here pretty much throughout the entire war, Hans Frank's youngest son, Nicholas.
James hopes Nicholas may have clues to what happened to the Raphael before it disappeared.
So this was your family home when you were a child?
It's a private part of the castle, reserved for the family of Frank.
I mean, what a place to live. It's just incredible. It's so huge.
The Wawel Castle has the biggest collection of tapestries in whole Europe.
Is that so?
It was something of the Polish kings. And you have to imagine, my mother was very poor when she was young.
Yes.
And suddenly she was the Queen of Poland, owning all this kind of stuff. And if you look at this chimney,
yes,
I've given you the picture.
Oh, this one?
This beautiful looking guy.
Could that really be you?
Yes, that's me.
Your 4-year-old self?
And that was made here.
Right here.
I mean, it's absolutely one of the same. You know, there's the buttress, you can see the same pattern there, you can see the same patterns down there.
My mother ordered to have this picture to send it to Hitler because my father wanted the divorce. So she wrote to Hitler, how could he give the permission that the father of such a wonderful family wanted the divorce? And Hitler said, I will not give the permission for the divorce.
Brigitte and Hans Frank surrounded themselves with luxury and fine art, while outside the castle walls, the Polish people lived in fear and deprivation.
He killed his conscience with luxury.
One of Hans Frank's favorite works of art was Leonardo da Vinci's Lady with an Ermine. Frank hung the masterpiece in his private apartments above a hot radiator. This boorish gesture elicited a serious reprimand from Cajetan Mühlmann.
Gosh, look at that. I think that's just perfection. Absolutely magnificent. I feel like I'm standing before greatness. Look, it's just perfect.
Completed at the end of the 15th century, Lady with an Ermine is one of the rare female portraits by Da Vinci.
I mean, it's one of the greatest works of art I've ever seen.
Not for me. I nearly hated this painting.
Why?
Because it's a mixture of dealing at the same time with the behavior of my father and knowing that he was a mass murderer. He was a cultured killer. Here we come to the private rooms.
This was his bedroom?
Yes. As far as I know, I'm not sure, but I'm sure of his bathroom.
So you remember this room?
Yes, because it was the only close scene which happened between my father and me. He was shaving and I was coming in, and he took a little spot of his foam and put it on my nose. That was the happiest scene I ever had with my father.
Really?
It happened here. And I always think, what did he think? Shaving himself in the morning, knowing that the Jews have been driven to the concentration camps. I mean, for me, it's unbelievable why he didn't shoot himself after having shaved.
Hans Frank was remorseless. But by 1945, the tide of the war had turned. As Soviet forces charged westward, Frank bolted, taking as much of the country's loot as he could.
So your father managed to sort of squirrel out the big three, the Raphael, the Rembrandt and the Leonardo.
I think 8 trucks full of paintings and other luxury goods. And my mother, by the way, she took with her a bag full of jewelry, stolen from the Polish Jews or the Polish people.
So they were big thieves,
yes.
Your parents. And so where did they go?
Back home to Bavaria.
What do you think happened to the Raphael?
Maybe my mother. I could think that she had stolen the Raphael. And then she sold it for butter, milk, bread to a guy in Bavaria.
So your gut instinct, is it still out there?
I would say it's still out there. I would say so.
To figure out what happened to the Raphael when Hans Frank fled Poland, the team examined his escape route. On January 17th, 1945, Frank left Krakow and headed west, through the Nazi stronghold of Lower Silesia. Could the Raphael be here?
So Lower Silesia is right about here, north of Krakow. I mean, today it's Poland, but at that point in time it was Germany.
Yeah, according to this post-war report on Dr. Günther Grundmann, He was the provincial curator for Lower Silesia and responsible for finding storage for all the looted art that the Nazis took.
During the war, Grundmann requisitioned more than 80 castles, monasteries and residences across Lower Silesia for the Nazis to store their looted art. The team learns of an archaeological dig at one of those sites, Grodno Castle. 300 kilometers east of Krakow, investigative journalist Connor Woodman heads to Grodno Castle with author Joanna Lampaska. She's written extensively on hidden Nazi treasure.
It is said that we have almost over 100,000 of treasure hunters in Poland today.
Wow. Why do you think this part of Poland, Lower Silesia, is so popular for treasure hunters?
Until 1945, it was a German region. Germans, they stored a lot of beautiful things from museums, from churches, private collections here, because they believe it's gonna be safe and it's stay in German hands forever. I know a guy who found a small gold bar in an oven in his palace. It was a year ago.
And so do you think there is still treasure buried underneath Grodno Castle?
Of course, I believe it.
Okay.
And a lot of treasure hunters want to find this treasure.
Grodno Castle is a 700-year-old fortress steeped in legend. It's also the site of a new excavation led by historian, treasure hunter and journalist Peter Maskowski.
Connor, nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. Welcome to Castle Grodno.
During the war, Grodno Castle was a major repository for art stolen by the Third Reich. Peter and his crew of archaeologists, historians and treasure hunters have started to excavate the cellar, looking for Nazi loot.
What are you hoping that we'll find in this spot?
The tunnel.
A tunnel?
The tunnel, yes.
Since the Second World War, stories have circulated about a secret tunnel beneath Grodno Castle filled with Nazi treasure, gold, art, and perhaps even the Raphael.
There is, of course, some witnesses.
Witnesses that say they actually saw a tunnel?
Some even seen this tunnel or even enter into this tunnel.
Wow. Were you thinking this is a tunnel that maybe the Nazis could have used?
I think this is a medieval tunnel used by Nazis by the end of the war.
Peter and his team know they're onto something. They've just discovered what looks like the remains of an old wooden chest.
Okay, these are the pieces of metal, which looks absolutely like the kind of a handle. Yeah. This is another
so
one.
The handle's the chest.
Yeah. So you don't have to be a specialist to see it.
No, you can see quite clearly. And you said you found a key as well. Right,
yeah.
But that is a key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, without doubt.
The chests were buried long before the Second World War, and their contents since have disintegrated. But this discovery confirms objects were hidden beneath Grodno Castle. Now Peter brings Connor and Joanna to the courtyard.
Here is the second place where we are going to do excavation.
Right.
Peter's team recently located a suspicious cavity beneath the castle courtyard. Using ground-penetrating radar, this imaging method is used to detect anomalies below the surface.
The GPR showed us that there is something different than usual ground down there.
Okay, so this is where you think the Van Schreck letter leads us to.
He described that here in this place there is some kind of staircase and empty space.
What's more, the existence of a tunnel is corroborated by a former German officer named Leonard von Schreck. He wrote to Joanna shortly before his death, and in his letter he described a mysterious underground space here.
And they put two chests somewhere in this place, and he secured with explosives. And after that, they disguised the place and left it.
So are you worried when you excavate that this might be wired with dynamite?
I'm always worried about this because it's a very vivid legend.
Peter's team is undeterred. They could be on the verge of finding a hidden Nazi tunnel.
We have a space.
You see the hole?
Yeah, you can see as a hole. It goes all the way through.
Something is behind these pillars.
In the hunt for the missing Raphael, investigative journalist Connor Woodman joins Peter Maskowski's treasure hunting team to look for a tunnel below Grodno Castle used by the Nazis to stash stolen treasure.
Here is the paths of the GPR. There are a few anomalies.
Peter's team is encouraged by the data from the ground-penetrating radar. It shows a suspicious cavity in this spot.
So we are digging pretty close to where that anomaly there is. This spot.
Exactly.
Come on! It's like pulling out a tooth. Yeah. Come on. Yes! Oh. Woo! Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
It's a tunnel. Yeah. We found a tunnel.
Connor's efforts to remove the rock have revealed an access point to a cavity below.
It looks to me like behind that is a secret tunnel. Shall we have a look?
Yeah. The opening is too small to enter safely, so the team will send a camera underground.
Good luck. Okay, we're going in.
They must lower the camera through a narrow, cramped space, 8 feet down, just to reach the cavity. Then, the camera has to be angled to get inside the tunnel and reveal its contents.
Wow, it goes all the way down.
The camera has reached the top of the tunnel.
So much concrete.
But the sheer amount of concrete debris prevents it from getting a look inside.
What about that crack there? Can you get through there?
Connor and Peter adjust the angle of descent.
There's a knack to this, isn't there?
Yeah.
No, it's blocked.
But they hit a wall.
Ah, it's frustrating!
They just can't twist the camera far enough to peer inside the cavity.
We can see it goes all the way down, but then it's hard to see where it goes.
It's really hard to operate this camera.
There is something behind there.
Yeah, we will have to think how to break through.
Peter's team isn't giving up. With the right equipment, they'll be able to clear all the rock and see what's inside the tunnel. 40 kilometers north of Grodno Castle, James is following an exciting new lead at Morava Palace, another residence where Dr. Gunther Grundmann stored looted art for the Nazis, including the Raphael.
This place is absolutely crucial to our investigation. In January 1945, Hans Frank finally left Krakow with the Russians closing in on the city and evacuated his entire art collection. He sent it here for safekeeping.
James has come to Morava to meet author Robert Kudelski.
I spent a lot of years to prepare this story, to find some more important information.
Kudelski has combed through Polish, German, Russian and American archives to shed new light on the case of the missing masterpiece.
As a Pole and as someone who's been studying this in great detail for many years.
Yes, more than 15 years.
Yeah, it must mean a huge amount to you to try and get the Raphael back.
Exactly, yeah.
After exhaustive research, Robert Kudelski thinks he's figured out when the Raphael went missing.
We know because we have the inventory of the local conservator Günther Grundmann.
On January 26, 1945, Grundmann was sent to Morava Palace to fetch the most valuable works in Frank's collection. He arrived on the 29th and made an inventory. The Raphael should be listed here, but it's missing.
So no Raphael on this list at all?
Absolutely.
What you can say for certain is that the Raphael goes missing sometime between the 26th and the 29th of January 1945.
Exactly.
If Kudelski is right, the Raphael vanished from Morava Palace over a 3-day period in January 1945. The question is, who stole it?
I believe that Edward Kneissel took the Raphael painting from the castle.
Austrian art conservator Eduard Kneissel spent the war in Poland, working for Nazi Governor-General Hans Frank.
And he was responsible for the protection and restoration of paintings of old masters.
Like a restorer? Art restorer?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, he knows everything there is to know about those paintings.
Absolutely. Every piece.
Eduard Kneissel would have known the extraordinary value of the Raphael.
But is there any hard evidence, or is it just a hunch?
Yes, of course. We have some evidence from the servant in the Castle Morava.
On January the 25th, Edward Kneissel was ordered to leave Morava. But Kudelski has uncovered eyewitness testimony that Kneissel returned to Morava Palace between January the 26th and January the 28th. Exactly when the painting goes missing.
Kneissel had the key.
What, here in Morava?
Yes, exactly. In this place.
Okay, that is all starting to stack up.
Yes.
According to the servant, Eduard Kneissel claimed he'd returned to pick up some of his restoration tools.
Kneissel came back here, and that his excuse was, I've come back to get some my tools of my trade. The Russians are knocking at the door to get me to come back and risk my life and limb.
Yes.
I think I need a little bit more of a lure. Maybe a priceless Raphael would, for starters.
Absolutely, yes.
You know, in any criminal investigation, you're looking for opportunity, motive, expertise, stroke knowledge.
Yes.
And when you put all that together...
Edward Kneissel.
Yeah.
Robert Kudelski has given the team a new suspect in the theft of the $100 million masterpiece.
Do you think Kneissel did it?
People know Nazi Germany's going to lose this war. Everyone's looking for a way out. I mean, a picture like this or an asset like this is the difference for someone to life and death.
Yeah, and if you just wrap a big blanket around it and you just put it under your arm and walk away with it, nobody would really know what it is.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what happened.
Yeah, and Kneissel could have taken this as a sort of insurance policy for himself for after the war. This might have been his lifeline.
5 days after Eduard Kneissel left Morava, he reported for work at Hans Frank's office in Bavaria. Did Kneissel stash the painting somewhere in the area? Or was it Nicholas Frank's mother who hid it here? Dorothée uncovers a new clue suggesting that one of them, or someone else, did exactly that.
There was this article in 2013 saying Mr. Lopes saw this painting in 1971 in the basement of somebody just down the road from the house the Franks used to live in.
Incredible. Is Lopes still alive?
Well, the article is so recent, I would say yes.
While Robert digs around for more evidence linking Edward Kneissel to the theft of the masterpiece, Dorothée travels to Bavaria. She's here to join James and to meet with the man who claims he saw the Raphael.
Und am Boden stand dieses Bild, Raphael. Es war Schock. Für mich war das ein Schock.
The search for the missing Raphael brings James to the mountains of Germany. After tracking the painting from Krakow to Morava, the team hones in on the small Bavarian town of Schliersee.
This is where Hans Frank was arrested in May 1945. Taken to prison, and that's where he would remain until October 1946, when he was hanged
for war crimes. When the Americans got here, they also found a number of those amazing paintings of Rembrandt, the Leonardo, but not the Raphael.
At the end of the war, the US Army discovered large caches of Nazi-looted art around the Bavarian Alps. And all the evidence the team has gathered leads here to the very same region. Bavaria is where Nicholas Frank suspects his mother could have sold the painting after the war.
And then she sold it for butter, milk, bread to a guy in Bavaria.
It's also where Eduard Kneissel might have secreted the Raphael as an insurance policy for his family.
Eduard Kneissel. After the war, he spent few years in Bavaria.
Whether it was Eduard Kneissel or Brigitte Frank who smuggled the painting back to Bavaria, one of them likely sold the masterpiece just to survive the desperate conditions at the close of the war. And now, the team has a solid lead that the painting is still somewhere here.
I'm on my way to meet Dorothy. She's found a gentleman called Mr. Lubbs, who reckons he saw the Raphael in a basement somewhere very near here.
In 1971, 26-year-old gun enthusiast Reinhard Lubbs came here to sell some antique rifles to a firearms collector.
So, Herr Lubbs, you've got the most amazing story. Dorothy's told me a little bit, but just start from the start.
Ich hatte 2 Karabiner zu verkaufen. Sagte mir, ich kenne jemanden, wenn der Preis stimmt, dann würde die beiden Karabiner dann kaufen.
So he had these carabiners, and then Mr. Lubbs said, "Can I see your collection of arms and armor and guns?" The guy said, "Sure." And Mr. Lubbs went to the basement with the 4-year-old son. So the two of them went downstairs. Dann haben sie zusammen sich den Keller angeschaut.
Ja, und am Ende, auf der Stirnseite dieses Kellers, war ein Vorhang. Und der Vorhang war halb offen. Und da waren dahinter Orden, EK1, EK2. Und am Boden stand dieses Bild, Raphael.
So Mr. Lubbs was standing right in front of the painting, went down to really have a good close look, and the little boy stood next to him.
Dann habe ich gefragt, warum? Ja, weil er eine Wärmflasche auf dem Kopf hat.
And the boy said, "He must really be freezing." And Mr. Lubbs said, "Why?" "Yeah, he has this hot water bottle on his head."
And of course he's got that velvet sort of slouch beret on his head, isn't he?
Yeah, we have it here.
Und das ist die Wärmflasche. Also.
So that's the hot water bottle right there, sort of hanging
Well, it does
down.
look a little bit like one. And this is absolutely what you saw.
Ja.
I mean, that's absolutely amazing.
Vor allem, nachdem ich eben 35 Jahre später den Bayern-Teil der Schongauer Nachrichten.
Amazing story. Amazing.
There is no doubt in Reinhard Lubbs' mind that the painting he saw in the cellar was the masterpiece Portrait of a Young Man by Raphael.
I mean, it's clearly over 40 years now, but if we were to get in the car and have a look, do you think we'd be able to find it?
Das ist wie die Nadel im Heuhaufen.
It's a little bit like a needle in the haystack, but let's try it.
Is it possible that the Raphael is here in this small Bavarian town?
Do you remember the houses, what they looked like?
Ja, es war ein altes Haus, ich nehme an, aus den 40er Jahren. Nichts Besonderes.
But sort of simple like this, or...
Kommt Ihnen das hier oben bekannt vor? We should probably ring some doorbells, shouldn't we? Guten Tag, verzeihen Sie die Störung.
Dorothee wonders if residents might remember a collector of historical firearms.
She said maybe in the next street down.
Oh, it's frustrating, isn't it? It's such a tantalizing lead, and yet we can't pinpoint the house.
While Dorothee and James continue to look for clues to the Raphael's whereabouts in Bavaria, Robert arrives in Vienna, on the trail of one of the suspects in the case. He's tracked down Eduard Kneissel's only son, Wolfgang.
Nice
How are
to
you?
meet you. Just come in.
Robert is here to find out if Wolfgang Kneissel knows if his father, Eduard, took the Raphael.
Wolfgang, tell me how your father came to be in Poland.
When Hitler came to Austria, all government employees were automatically member of the Nazi Party. But my father refused to go to certain demonstration, and he was transferred as a punishment to Krakow. He was by special order, he had to go to Dr. Cajetan Mühlmann.
Cajetan Moment.
Yeah.
For much of the war, Eduard Knysel's job was to restore the art the Nazis had looted in Poland. This included all the paintings in Hans Frank's collection.
Did your father ever do any work on the Leonardo or on the Raphael?
Probably. I didn't ask him, but he was very aware of those paintings.
Eduard Knysel knew the paintings well, and he knew the Raphael was left behind at Morava in January 1945.
Raphael.
Robert is here to corroborate the evidence.
He packed it.
He needs to find out whether Wolfgang thinks his father was involved in the theft.
So there are a number of different people, of course, that have been spending decades, their entire lives, trying to track this painting by Raphael. But one of the theories, of course, is that your father took the picture. Do you think he did that?
No, definitely not. He wouldn't have the guts to do it, you know? Probably if you have the intention to steal something like that, you wouldn't dare it with a Raphael or a Leonardo. My father always said, whenever you fake a painting, don't fake a Leonardo or a Raphael. Just fake some cheap Austrian painters, you know, because nobody will make a research in that case. So I don't think so. This is, no, it's impossible.
Wolfgang Knysel is adamant his father didn't steal the Raphael. He vividly remembers his father telling him how he helped the Allies track art stolen by the Nazis.
When the war ended, he was driving around with the 4 soldiers in the jeep. A Russian soldier, English soldier, an American soldier, and a French soldier, trying to find some war criminals and so forth and so on. And sometimes, if it was concerning about art, you know, my father was driving with them just to say, okay, this man or that man, they can have a picture, a stolen picture or not.
But if Eduard Knysel didn't take the masterpiece, then who did? Hans Frank's wife, Brigitte? Either way, the team has a strong hunch someone snuck it into Bavaria at the end of the war. In Schliersee, James and Dorothee have searched most of the town, but have yet to find the house where Reinhard Lubs believes he saw the Raphael in the 1970s.
Well, we should ask this chap.
Guten Tag, darf ich Sie was fragen? Haben Sie hier schon in den 70er Jahren gelebt? Kennen Sie jemanden, der hier früher der eine Sammlung hatte mit Waffen?
Unbekannt.
Danke. Alles Gute.
No?
Yeah, so he said he has never heard of anybody who collected guns in this area, and he has been living here since the 70s.
It's very frustrating, isn't it? Because we feel we're kind of in the right neck of the woods, but...
Bavaria was the Nazis' spiritual homeland and may still hold secrets from the Second World War. The team's best guess is that the masterpiece is still here, some 70 years after it was brazenly stolen from Poland.
My gut instinct is that it's out here somewhere, still lying in some attic or some basement, just waiting to be recovered.
In retracing the Raphael's incredible wartime journey, the team has gone from Pelkinie to Wawel Castle to a small lakeside town in Bavaria.
There's so much pointing to this part of the world, isn't there?
It must still be somewhere here.
Along the way, the team have identified 2 potential suspects in the theft of the masterpiece.
Eduard Knysel.
Yeah. Maybe my mother I could think that she had stolen the Raphael.
And determined that all roads lead to Bavaria. Of all the paintings stolen by the Nazis and still missing today, Portrait of a Young Man by Raphael remains the most valuable. But the theft of this masterpiece goes far beyond its staggering price tag. It's emblematic of the pillaging of an entire nation's cultural treasures.
For people in Poland, this painting by Raphael it's in a way kind of their Mona Lisa. If someone finds the Raphael, that's going to be on the front page of every newspaper and every website in the world for a 24-hour period. So I'm hopeful that we've stirred up a lot of interest in this painting now, and I hope lead us to the door of the Raphael.